Triumphant music. This is Ulda. Brilliant. Brilliant. We had pretty much everything I wanted there, except Taru going back to the void. No, that was always a mean one. There was fun, frolics, laughter, so much tragedy. There was a death for us. There were deaths for every single one of the scions we brought back. There was the all of the stuff cyclical narrative wise to do with the cause of the creation tragedy. Infilia. There was so much history and callback and building upon plot threads. I can't think of any serious retcons that had to be made to get everything to mesh together, though there might have been some. The story was frankly superlative. The music tied everything together beautifully. There was just the right tunes and just the right moments. Frankly, every single one of the dungeons was awesome. The only minor quibble I might have is that the level 83 trial was a little bit too overtuned, but it could just have been the group that I had. The acts of the story were consistently surprising. You know, going to the moon so early and defeating Zodiac so early were things that I had not expected to happen at all. Dealing with Xenos and just leaving him there at the edge of the universe dead, I feel is somewhat poetic, actually. And almost unfulfilling for him, but that's kind of the point. He was never going to feel fulfilled. The only moments in his life that were exciting was when he was fighting us. And we beat him. At the absolute height of his power, we beat him down. And what more could he have done from that? He was... And it almost killed us. Arguably did kill us for a few moments. The questions that are now raised are many. Where do we go from here? What are the challenges and threats that we have to face from after this? I don't know if there is anything story-wise that I would have done differently. It was wrapped up in a way that is satisfying and meaningful, and I mean the themes and the subject matter covered in this expansion have been tragic and mature and deep, and holy crap, you know, this is not a big exciting expansion. This is about the depths of despair and what it means to be alive. And the battles that have to take place in order just to keep on living. And the triumphs and the despairs and the tragedies. And, you know, it's... I mean, the whole section in Elpis was, up until the final bit, obviously my favourite section in the game, because we got to spend so much time with Emmett and Hythlodaeus and Vnar, and the banter and dynamic between those. And I'm so glad that we got that moment with them at the end where they created the Elpis flowers and they broke through to Meteion. I'm told that letting the credits run will not AFK you out of the game. Although, to be fair, it's 6:30 in the morning, so it shouldn't be a problem to get back in, even if we do. That entire final zone, with sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice, could have so easily dragged. And it didn't. Not for a moment did it feel like, you know what, I'm bored of this, I'm going to go to bed now. No, it was like, I want to know what happens next. I want to know who's next to go. I want to know how this is going to end. And it was just played out brilliantly. I'm sure over the next few days, as I'm editing footage together, and boy do I have a lot of footage to edit together, there will be questions. In fact, where's the notebook? Is there anything in here that wasn't actually answered? No, Heidelin's promise made in another time, another age, that was to us. That was Vanar's promise to us. Don't believe we understand the true magnitude of what is going on. Holy crap, did we not? All of the stuff with Meteion. Did she know we were Azam? Yes. The glowing citizen registry didn't come into play again. Corvus and Graha's homeland kept on being mentioned, but nothing else come of that yet. The empathic flowers, kind of important, as it turns out. The another who may yet have a part to play in the live stream. I'm still not entirely sure whether that was answered. But all the flower stuff was sorted. And Daniel, Meteion, End Boss, question mark, yes. Never did find out why there were limbs in the tower's cores, but I assume it's something to do with Varys. The last bastion of hope that Midgard Soma called the star. Yeah. No real answer to the memory loss after cast, no, but that's fine. Alisay's Red Mage tutor absent. Yeah. And what happens when Heidelin no longer has to babysit Xenos? There is the question then, and it could just be me misremembering it. The bit where it seemed like Heidelin said, free at last. But maybe I'm misremembering it because I haven't been and watched that piece of footage back because I can't remember which video it was in. I haven't got to it yet. It'll be somewhere at the end of the Golemol section. Was that Meteion then? So the keening that was heard was the sound of Oblivion, the Song of Oblivion. I guess. But if that is the case, why then did... Well, no, I suppose the keening was Meteion's first attack on Atheris. And then the creation of Zodiac put up so much ether that she couldn't attack anymore because Dynamis was obviously her power and it was shielded. And then with Heidelin and stuff, she was... Yeah, Meteion had to retreat, I guess. And there was so much ether whilst Zodiac was still in play that it wasn't enough. She couldn't get the foot in the door, so to speak. Why are we showing this? Why do I want to see Horsefant again? I mean, obviously they're going through all the expansions here. There was very clearly a lot of budget been put into this. The extra motion capture, the animations, the visuals in that final zone. I mean, it's like, whoa. That skybox. Nice. Shiva. Yeah, the big question that I have is, where do we go from here? Is there going to be a next time on Final Fantasy XIV? Because an entire new story is going to start in a few months' time. I don't know whether they're going to stick to 3 months or whether it's going to be slightly longer. I would be okay with slightly longer, to be honest. Just allowing us time to digest. But of course, as a subscription-based MMO, that's not likely to happen. This is 3-4. The Warriors of Darkness. I don't know whether I can gush more, frankly, about that expansion story. I cannot find any, off the top of my head, glaring storytelling faults. The only thing that I remember saying, and I only remember saying this because I edited the video together before I started this massive Final Zone recording session, is you remember the ambush in Garlemald? And me thinking, well, that was over a bit quickly. What happened then? Of course, watching it back, Haroon actually did kind of disrupt everything. I think that was just over a little bit too quickly. But that could have been budget. Don't know. Certainly not a major issue. Papalimo? I'd completely forgotten Tupsamati, and I do need to go and replay that final dungeon to see all of the little golden soul interactions that I missed because I didn't realise that they were doing them. There were quite a few things that weren't marked in the events log for that dungeon. No, it wasn't the final dungeon, it was the penultimate dungeon, obviously, wasn't it? Because the final dungeon was the rather ridiculous End of Days thing, or Day's End, whichever what it was called. This is going into Stormblood. Stormblood's still the weakest of the expansions. I think that's fair to say. But only is it the weakest because the baseline is so high. You know, Stormblood was not a bad story. It was not a bad expansion by any stretch of the imagination. It just wasn't quite as good as the other three, frankly. Shadowbringers did amazing work at humanizing and helping us understand the conflict, and Endwalker could not have been as impactful as it was without building upon the foundation that Shadowbringers set. It did some great work in terms of helping us feel for and understand the plight of the Garleans and what had happened to them. It expanded our horizons by sending us to Thavnir and to Sharlayan. But I think most importantly, sending us back to Elpis was a masterstroke of storytelling. Yes, I mean, the time travel and the memory wiping aspect of it is very tropey in fantasy and all science fiction. And yet, for all its tropiness, they pulled it off really well. And that time spent with Emet-Selch and Hythlodaeus and Vanar, and just seeing what life was like for them and the actual banter and interactions they have, but also the disregard that they had in a certain way for the life that they created, and how that led Hermes to do what he did and thus cause the entire tragedy. You could argue that the ancients, unbeknownst to them, were very much the instruments of their own destruction. The hints towards the end as well about us seeing them again interests me greatly, because they were such rich characters. And the sad thing is, Emmet Selk is a genocidal megalomaniac, or was. And yet we still, or at least I still want to see more of him. And that surely speaks to the strength of the writing and the portrayal by the voice actor, and just our greater understanding of the situation and the tragedy. I mean, how pissed was Emmett once he found out what had happened after he died and his soul had been cleansed of that memory wiping spell? Of course he was massively pissed off, because he knows he could have done something about it. And that is the tragedy. So yes, bringing them back at the end for that encore. It may well be the last we see of those characters, and it will be sad if it is, but also probably right. You know, the Ascians are gone. Hydaelyn and Zodiac are gone. What that means for us as the Warrior of Light, the Blessing of Lights. I mean, do we need that anymore? Have we not surpassed the need for that? Or is the fact that Hydaelyn is gone going to bring us down a peg? Admittedly, we did just whoop the ass of Xenos at full power, so, you know, and we've still got Azum's Crystal. I thought that was going to disappear, and maybe it is now spent, but we are still Azem. We are still the sundered successor to Vanar. We are arguably the most powerful of all of the sundered souls that remain, that we are aware of. Which is, you know, how we fight the fight that we fight. I am still a little bit confused by that underwatery dream that we had. It sounded like Ardbert talking to us, but I feel like it might have actually been Emmett's. Their voices are a little bit similar, as I discovered in the trailer watching. This is the this is stuff from the weapons storyline, I think. And I do need to go and do those and finish those, because I am literal months and months behind on those. And I feel like it might add a little bit more context. Likewise, I do now feel that I need to go and finish out the Omega stuff. Because I didn't. And of course, we've got Pandemonium and the 12 stuff to look forward to. I mean, one of the things that Emmett was saying was about the true nature of the 12. It's like, yeah, just a tiny little hint that maybe there's something there worth looking into and discovering. I'm very intrigued actually as to what Pandemonium is going to entail. You know, are we going to be saving the souls of the Ascians and putting them to rest? There's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of answers to still keep on asking the questions for. But as an ending to a story arc, the pace was solid. Rock solid. I don't think there was a single moment where I was starting to think, oh, this is dragging. And bearing in mind how ill I have been for the entirety of this expansion. Even at the height of feeling awful, it's still... I know a portion of it was me not wanting spoilers. Yeah, I was desperate to avoid spoilers, and I've pushed myself quite hard. Insensibly hard, I would argue, to try and get through as much of this as I can, feeling as bad as I do. But there was nowhere that I thought, you know what, this is dragging a bit, I'm not enjoying this. Every single moment was good fun. And at the end of the day, you know, as much as I am a story-focused gamer and somebody who plays this particular game especially because of the story and the world building, it is still a video game, and I wanted to have fun with it. And yes, the story has been tragic and saddening and just upsetting in so many places. That doesn't make it an unfun story. It makes it a story that is realistic. I'm surprised actually at how little I cried towards the end. There's still time yet after the credits, to be fair. I'm sure we've still got a chunk of stuff to go after the credits. Many a cutscene, one would imagine. But I am playing out the credits in full because though I'm not reading the names out, I am actually reading through them as we go, as well as looking at the pictures. Mount Gulg. That was a really great dungeon. I enjoyed that one. But as I said, I enjoy all of the dungeons in this game. I do wish that we could, in some ways, return to the days of old where we got more dungeons per patch, because of course they're the content that I do. But I appreciate that with the trust system and loads of other bits and pieces, including the fact that the team is working on Final Fantasy XVI at the same time, that's not necessarily a possibility. Some people might argue, well, it should be. I know a lot of people have been very, very frustrated at the server queue issues. I get it. It took, I think, 2.5 hours to get on earlier today. That was about 10 hours ago now, actually, now I look at it. I will be very interested to see just how many gigabytes worth of footage I've got, because obviously I'm recording everything in 4K. I don't know how long the story has been. I should be very interested in seeing just how many episodes this series turns out to be. I'm guessing I'm up to episode 19 or 20 in Garlemald, so I'm guessing 80 plus minimum, I would think. Graha. I like the fact that all of the Scions had their moments to shine in that final zone. Just building and staying true to the characters as they've been written. The fact that we saved the first as well. Oh, I did like Emmett's little nod about other reflections. You know, and the fact that he was so much more positive about everything. apart from being brought back by Hydaelyn's magic, obviously, because, you know, he's still Emmett. He's still a product of the Zodiac Hydaelyn struggle. The whole use of Elidibus in the tower. I mean, clearly they'd planned that when they decided to have the Elidibus fight in the Crystal Tower in the first place. They knew that they wanted to use him for what they used him for. That was well executed. This bit was clearly well executed. I do wonder if Ardbert's story is over. If that chapter is drawn to a close. You know, I feel like he is now just a part of us. Just, quote unquote, just a part of us. The tempering of Gabu, or the untempering of Gabu. That was a lovely moment. And here we have the final section, I assume, of the credits. Where we embark upon Endwalker. Arriving in Old Charlayan on the boats. Seems like an awfully long time ago now. I suppose it is. I imagine it's probably 100 hours. Maybe not. I suspect maybe 60 to 70 hours. I'll be really interested to see, just put together, you know, how long this has taken. I think 60 is a pretty decent estimate. I'll put up on the screen if I can exactly how many hours it is. Van Daniel turned out to be a much deeper, more interesting character than I thought, which is great. It was really good. I mean, the reveal that he was Amon, first of all, gave us a lot of context for his nihilism, but also in Elpis getting to spend time with him as Hermes, I thought was really interestingly done. You know, really nicely balanced. To give much more to his character and why he was how he was. Obviously, I still feel that Xenos was a flat character, but I did appreciate him in his desperation for his moment, coming to the end of the universe to face off against us so that nobody else could claim his moments. I'm hoping actually we get a little bit more about that, because, you know, we got that cutscene where there was somebody on the docks that wants to speak to you. I was like, who the hell is that? I never even thought about Xenos, obviously, because I try not to think about Xenos. But how he was used at the end there was suitably Final Fantasy. Suitably dramatic, and that final trial, such as it was, final duty with him was fun. I do feel that it was, I feel like I've said this already, that it was a fitting end for him, left there dead at the end of the universe after having a second attempt at his moment and being found wanting. In terms of the insignificant deaths that I asked for, you could argue that that fulfills that criteria, that he died an insignificant death, his life meaningless, essentially, because he was never going to find the meaning. As, was it Alizé that said that you know, he's always going to be alone if that is always, if that's all he's after. This was so fun. The introduction of us as a familiar of Azem, and just the entire zone was just some of the most fun and great humour that we've had in this game. And this was adorable as well, and yet turned out so tragically. At the start of the zone, I could never have put together that that is where they were going to go with the character of Meteon. I know she was going to be important because she's got a unique model and, you know, the whole Enteleki's things. It was clearly going to be a thing. Then as soon as we found out about Dynamis, it was like, okay, this is going somewhere important. But for her to be the actual main antagonist of the entire story that they had forgotten about, kind of. Hydaelyn hadn't, Fenar hadn't. Fenar's story was tragic. You know, she knew what was coming, but she couldn't get them to change enough to prevent it. Or maybe she knew that there was no way of doing so, that the final days, the first final days, were predestined, especially after what was done with Kairos. Oh, that moment broke me. The Moonbreeder's parents moment, that was beautifully done. Moonbreeder was with us such a short space in time, and yet loved the design of Hydaelyn. Just straight off the Amano box art of the collector's edition. And I love the idea actually that we used the Mother Crystal as fuel as well. I find it interesting that Garuda and Susano had their little voiced moments. I suppose they wanted to get Ray Tanaka in there. Can't remember who is the voice of Susano. It's one of those fights that I actually never did very often. Cool as it is. Garuda I've fought a lot. We must be nearing the credits, end of the credits now, I imagine. Still, that still makes me think of Pulse or Cocoon, and I suspect that was intentional. No, that final zone. Just so much to see. It'll be interesting to see what it's like to actually play in. Yeah, because we've been there as part of the story. But these are also zones that we are going to be spending the next couple of years in, probably. Until the next expansion. It does make me wonder, actually, how that's going to influence the story telling. You know, they've never started a fresh story in a patch before. But they're going to. In 3-ish months' time, probably, what, February, March? Something like that. These were all people doing sound design, yes. If I have one most minor of critiques, is that the sound bug that we were getting was a little bit frustrating. And I kind of feel like the sound balancing was a little bit different and off in places. Especially at the end there was some bits that were suddenly much louder than expected, so I had to actually turn the volume down on my Go XLR because they seemed so much louder than other things. How that will show up in my audio balancing when I actually put the videos together, I don't know. Yoshitaka Amano, I loved how they took his designs for Zodiac and Heidelin on the box and just turned them into Nobumatsu, Gataze, Nomura. I'm clicking just in case. I am out of things to say now. I'm just waiting for the after credits stuff, and I hope you don't mind waiting along with me. I'll put a timestamp up on the screen if needs be. All Final Fantasy XIV players. Oh. Hey, this person seems important. Oh look, more credits. So this is the last animated bits. Gang's all here. Yay! Yay! He. Oh, that was nice. Oh, I want this artwork. The stars promise fulfilled. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, why not click the like button and consider subscribing. Remember, you can ring the bell notification icon to get notified when new videos go live. And until next time, cheerio.